Many players misunderstand spin, they think it's a simple back-to-front motion or a bottom-to-top motion. Consequently, you can only loop off the incoming pace. Once you face a soft or slow ball, your loops start breaking down. Today, let's talk about why you can't generate enough spin. The first key point is that generating spin requires hand and finger strength. You definitely need to get a hand gripper. Doctors say it improves blood circulation and helps prevent issues like blood clots. So, use it whenever you can as part of your physical training. Get a gripper with lighter resistance. You need to practice relaxing and squeezing to build finger strength. Spin is directly related to your finger strength. Don't buy one that's too heavy. Women should get the lightest one, men can start with the second or third level. This is to build up your hand strength. I'll hit 2 balls, the first. The second. The second ball had more spin because I used my fingers. The first ball had no spin because I only used my arm, with no wrist or finger action. So, what does using your fingers mean? For a forehand loop with a penhold grip, the power comes from the back 3 fingers. Your fingers should overlap, with the ring and middle fingers supporting the back of the blade. The power should come from these 2 fingers, while for a shakehand grip, it's the index finger. To apply force correctly, your fingers must be flush against the rubber. My fingers stay on the rubber, driving the racket face upwards, forwards, or downwards. That's finger power. Why do so many players fail to generate spin on their loops or serves? It's because their fingers aren't engaged with the blade. With a penhold grip like this, you can only push forward. A penholder should apply pressure from the side of their fingers, but they end up clamping down on the racket. This only allows for a flat hitting motion, which can't generate any spin. For shakehanders, if there's a gap between your fingers and the blade, your power will be hollow. You don't have a firm connection with the racket. To generate real power, you must ensure there is no space between your fingers and the rubber. Second, a looping motion is upward, while a push is downward. Your fingers must press into the rubber to drive the racket face with force. That is finger power. Third, how can you engage your fingers effectively? You can only generate explosive force from a relaxed state. If you are always tense, you can't apply power. That's just arm strength, not finger strength. Therefore, before contact, your fingers must be relaxed. They should just rest on the rubber, then squeeze explosively the instant you contact the ball. If you tense your fingers during the backswing or far from the ball, you'll never feel true finger acceleration. So, master these 3 points. 1. Fingers must be tight against the rubber. 2. Fingers must learn to drive the racket up and down, not just forward. 3. Learn to relax with a light grip, then squeeze your fingers explosively at contact. This acceleration is what unleashes maximum spin. Second major point, to create spin, your racket head needs to rotate. For example, watch my hook serve. The amount of rotation is quite small. You can visualize this on a clock face. Imagine 12 o'clock is at the top, and 6 o'clock is at the bottom. For my forehand loop, watch the racket head. The racket head moves from the 7 o'clock to the 10 o'clock position. For the backhand, it's from 5 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Technically, a standard backhand is 7 to 10 and a forehand is 5 to 2. I'm just demonstrating mirrored for the camera, but the principle is the same. The range of motion isn't huge, and the rotation comes from the racket head. If I use only my wrist, the racket will probably flip up to 12 o'clock. If I use my forearm, it's easy to end up at 1 o'clock. And if I swing my whole arm, it will go past 1 o'clock. So, true spin generation comes from a very compact motion. The same applies to the backhand. The clock face is the best way to explain the path of the racket for spin. Because a clock face is curved, an arc, your brushing motion must also be an arc. Many players misunderstand spin, they think it's a simple back-to-front motion or a bottom-to-top motion. Against topspin, hitting through the ball is fine. But against backspin, a linear path creates no trajectory. If your opponent's push is fast or has heavy spin, a linear, pushing type loop will result in an unstable arc and go into the net. The problem with only brushing upwards is that your loop will have no forward drive. Consequently, you can only loop off the incoming pace. Once you face a soft or slow ball, your loops start breaking down. So, your brushing motion should follow the curve of the clock face. It must be an arc. Moving from 5 o'clock to 2 o'clock means you first go to 4, then 3, then wrap inwards to 2. It's not a straight line forward, like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It should be a curve, like the hands of a clock, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 12. Do you see how it's exactly like a clock face? Most amateur players generate spin with only forward and back or up and down motions. Or they use a diagonal, slicing motion. This is the fundamental mistake. You're making contact on a flat plane, not a curved path. This is why many players have a weak backhand, it's just a forward push. The brushing trajectory for the backhand should go from 7 o'clock to 8, 9, and 10 o'clock. Then, the 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock segment is the power generation phase where the forearm extends outward. You can't start your backswing at 6 o'clock, that will only send the ball straight up to 12. If the ball has heavy backspin, I'll brush from 10 o'clock towards 12 o'clock. If the ball has little spin, I'll drive from 10 o'clock towards 2 o'clock. It's the same for a loop. If you start your backswing at 6 o'clock, you create a beautiful, perfect arc for your stroke. The mistake amateurs make is not starting at 6 o'clock. They swing straight back, and then push straight forward. When that goes in the net, they swing straight back and then lift straight up. Instead, can we try this? Backswing to 6, contact at 5, follow through to 4, then 3, 2, and 1. Connect it all. That looks so much better. Third point, to generate spin and friction, your racket itself must rotate. I will serve 2 balls. Let's see why my serves aren't spinning. Watch closely. My arm is moving down, but the racket head is static. We can grade spin by levels. Using your body weight adds a level of spin, swinging your arm adds another, and snapping the racket head adds a third. On those serves I just did, I was only swinging my arm, so the spin was just a level 1. If you add your body weight into it, that's a level 2 spin. If you snap the racket head on top of that, you reach level 3 spin. If you speed up both your body movement and the racket head rotation, you achieve level 4 spin. Most amateurs only use their arm. Their body is static, and their racket head doesn't rotate, or rotates too slowly. It's the same for looping. If you don't use your legs to get down and up, you have no body rotation. You only have arm rotation, and the racket head isn't snapping. They have level 4 spin, you have level 1. This means you can loop their no-spin pushes, but as soon as they add real spin, you'll make an error. Your racket head has to move. Right now, is my racket head moving independently from my wrist, or are they locked together? It's moving independently. Now you see why your shots lack spin, right? It's because your wrist and racket are locked together as one unit. They aren't separate. If you can separate them, the spin will be incredible. Pips out rubbers, short, long, or medium, all struggle against heavy spin. Pips are very common at the amateur level, but not at the professional level. You might only find a few pips players out of 100 pros. So, if you want to beat players with short, long, or other tricky pips, you must have spin. This is why finger power is so important. When the fingers engage, the racket face automatically accelerates. This means during your backswing and approach, the moment you contact the ball, your fingers must snap. After contact, let the arm follow through. That is the complete motion. First, at the exact moment of contact, you have to create a separation between your wrist and your forearm. This separation is led by the fingers, which pull the wrist away from the forearm. Without this separation, you can't add extra spin. So first, separate them so the racket face can rotate. Second, separation alone is not enough. If your motion is slow after the separation, it becomes loose and ineffective. The action must be compact. You have to accelerate. So how do I accelerate? If you use your wrist, the motion becomes a big, uncontrolled flick. If you use your fingers, you can truly accelerate. To accelerate, you must first be relaxed. It's like a standing long jump, you relax and swing to get power. You can't jump far if you're tense. So the key is that your fingers must learn to be relaxed. Then, accelerate at impact. This has nothing to do with your other joints. Just get your fingers right, and your spin will improve. For a shot like this, just get the fingers right, and the ball will be heavy with spin. If I want to add length and power, after the finger action, I just add my arm and body. If your spin is weak, focus on these 3 main areas. The way you use your fingers, the clock face brushing technique, and the direction of your force. Master these 3 components, and you'll have the spin needed to beat pips players.